The war had lasted 3 long years, and the Galactic Coalition was losing badly. Against the Vorax Dominion, General Koroth stood on the command tower of Fortress Kethra and watched the enemy lines stretch across the horizon like a dark ocean of death and destruction. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he counted the enemy positions for the 100th time that day. 900,000 Vorax soldiers surrounded his fortress, and his own forces numbered less than 50,000 tired and wounded warriors. "We cannot hold much longer," said Captain Yethrin of the Selthri forces, his blue scales turning pale with exhaustion and fear. "Our ammunition runs low, and our soldiers have not slept in for days." Koroth's mandibles clicked together in frustration. He knew the captain spoke the truth, but he refused to accept defeat. The Velen High Command had ordered him to hold this position at all costs, and he would die before he surrendered to the Vorax monsters, who had already destroyed 32 civilizations. Ambassador Thylak entered the command room with a datapad clutched in her slender fingers. Her expression was strange, and Koroth could not tell if she brought good news or bad news. "What is it now?" Koroth demanded without turning to face her. "Reinforcements," Thylak replied in a voice that carried both hope and confusion. "Earth has answered our call for military assistance." Koroth spun around so fast that his armor plates scraped against each other. Earth was the homeworld of the newly discovered species called humans. The Coalition had only made contact with them 2 years ago, and very little was known about their military capabilities. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and the Coalition had sent requests for help to every allied species. "How many soldiers are they sending?" Koroth asked eagerly. "A division? 2 divisions? We need at least 10,000 fresh troops to break the siege." Thylak hesitated, and her translator device hummed nervously. "They are sending 12 soldiers, General." 12,000? "No, General. Just 12. Koroth stared at the ambassador for a long moment. His mandibles opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. Around him, his officers exchanged glances of disbelief and anger. "This is an insult," Koroth finally growled. "We asked for warriors, and they send us a handful of soldiers. Do these humans think this is a game? Do they think we are joking when we say we face 900,000 enemies? Perhaps they do not have more soldiers to spare," offered Captain Yethrin in a weak attempt to calm his commander. "Or perhaps they are cowards who send token forces to pretend they care while we die." Koroth snapped back. "Either way, this is useless. 12 soldiers cannot make any difference in this battle." Despite his anger, Koroth went to the landing platform to meet the human transport ship. Diplomatic protocols demanded at least that much courtesy, and he would not give Earth any excuse to claim the Coalition had treated their soldiers poorly. The human ship was small and unremarkable. It descended through the ash-filled sky and landed with a soft thump on the damaged platform. Koroth noticed that the ship bore many scars and dents from previous battles, which suggested these humans had at least seen some combat. The transport ramp lowered slowly, and white steam hissed from the opening. Koroth waited with his arms crossed over his broad chest, ready to give these humans a piece of his mind about their inadequate response to the Coalition's plea for help. The first human to emerge was a female with dark skin and a scar running across her left cheek. She wore black armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and she carried a rifle that looked simple but well-maintained. Her eyes scanned the landing platform and the surrounding ruins with a calm intensity that made Koroth pause. Behind her came 11 more humans in similar black armor. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost predatory, and their eyes never stopped moving, always watching, always alert. Not one of them showed any sign of fear or hesitation despite the sound of distant explosions and the sight of the massive Vorax army on the horizon. "General Koroth," the scarred female said in a voice that was surprisingly soft yet carried easily across the platform. "I am Gunnery Sergeant Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Marine Corps, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, 1st Platoon. We are reporting for assignment." She snapped her hand to her forehead in what Koroth assumed was a human salute. He did not return the gesture. "1 platoon," Koroth said with contempt dripping from every word. "The Vorax have 900,000 soldiers surrounding this position, and Earth sends 1 platoon. Is this your idea of help? Is this supposed to make us feel better as we face extinction? Vasquez did not flinch at his harsh words. Her expression remained calm, and her eyes stayed locked on his with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. "I understand your concerns, General," she replied in that same steady voice. "But my orders are clear, and my squad is ready for combat. If you point us toward the enemy, we will do what Marines do best." "And what exactly is that?" Korath demanded with a mocking laugh. Vasquez smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. The smile of a predator looking at prey that did not yet realize its danger. "We kill things, General. We are very good at killing things." Private Chen, the youngest of the squad, let out a small chuckle that he quickly suppressed. The other Marines remained silent, but Korath noticed several of them had the same predatory gleam in their eyes as their sergeant. "Fine," Korath said with a dismissive wave of his massive hand. "You want to help? Go to Sector 7 on the eastern wall. It is the quietest area, and you can observe from there. Try not to get in the way of real soldiers." "Sector 7, Vasquez repeated with a nod. "Understood, General. We will head there immediately." She turned and gestured to her squad. Without another word, the 12 humans marched off toward the eastern wall, their black armor making them look like shadows moving through the ruined streets. Captain Yethrin stepped up beside Korath and watched the humans disappear into the distance. "They seem confident," the captain observed quietly. "Confidence means nothing without numbers," Korath replied bitterly. "Those 12 humans will be dead by morning, and we will still be facing 900,000 enemies. What a waste of time and resources." He turned and walked back into the command bunker, already forgetting about the human soldiers he had sent to the quietest sector. He would remember them soon enough. The night was coming, and with it would come the Vorax assault. Korath prepared for the worst battle of his life, never imagining that the worst battle would be fought not by his 50,000 soldiers, but by 12 humans in black armor who did not know how to be afraid. The darkness fell over Kethra Prime like a heavy blanket, and with it came the sounds of war. Captain Yethrin commanded 300 Selthri soldiers on the eastern wall in Sector 7. His troops were tired and scared, and many of them had not eaten a proper meal in days. The ammunition supplies were dangerously low, and Yethrin knew that if the Vorax attacked his position in force, his soldiers would not survive the night. He stood on the wall and looked out at the enemy campfires that dotted the landscape, like orange stars fallen from the sky. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, and each fire represented dozens of Vorax warriors hungry for coalition blood. "Captain," called one of his scouts from the shadows below. "Movement on the eastern approach. The Vorax are massing for an assault." Yethrin felt his heart sink into his stomach. An assault on Sector 7 meant his 300 exhausted soldiers would have to face an enemy force that could number in the thousands. He grabbed his communicator to call for reinforcements, but he already knew the answer he would receive. General Korath had no soldiers to spare, and Sector 7 was considered a low-priority target. "How many enemy soldiers?" Yethrin asked, trying to keep his voice steady. 5,000 confirmed, the scout replied with fear in his voice. "Maybe more coming from the rear positions." 5,000 against 300. Yethrin closed his eyes and said a silent prayer to whatever gods might be listening. This was going to be a massacre. "Everyone to defensive positions," he ordered. "Prepare for the assault. We will hold this wall or die trying." His soldiers moved with the mechanical obedience of warriors who had accepted their fate. They took their places behind the damaged barricades and aimed their weapons at the darkness. Beyond the wall, some of them whispered goodbyes to loved ones they would never see again. Then Yethrin remembered the humans. He had almost forgotten about the 12 strange soldiers who had arrived that afternoon. General Korath had assigned them to Sector 7 as a way of keeping them out of the real fighting, and Yethrin had not bothered to check on them. Were they still here? Had they run away when they saw the size of the enemy force? A shadow moved beside him, and Yethrin nearly jumped out of his scales. "Easy there, Captain," said a calm female voice. "Did not mean to startle you." It was the human sergeant, Vasquez. She stood next to him on the wall as if she had appeared from thin air, her black armor blending perfectly with the night. How long had she been there? Sergeant, Yethrin gasped. The Vorax are coming. 5,000 soldiers are about to attack this position. You and your squad should fall back to the inner compound where it is safer. Vasquez tilted her head and looked out at the approaching enemy with an expression that Yethrin could not understand. Was that curiosity? Excitement? Surely it could not be excitement. 5,000, she repeated thoughtfully. That is not too bad. We have handled worse odds. Worse odds? Yethrin grabbed her arm in desperation. Sergeant, there are only 12 of you. This is not a training exercise. These are Vorax soldiers and they will tear you apart. Vasquez gently removed his hand from her arm and gave him a smile. That somehow made him feel both reassured and terrified at the same time. Captain, I appreciate your concern, but my squad and I have been waiting all day for something to do. Why do you not let your soldiers rest, and we will handle the night shift? Before Yethrin could respond, Vasquez raised her hand and made a series of quick gestures. From the shadows all around the wall, 11 more figures emerged like ghosts rising from graves. The other Marines moved into position without a sound, spreading out along the wall and disappearing into the darkness between the broken pillars and rubble. What are you doing? Yethrin whispered. Our job, Vasquez replied. Now please keep your soldiers down and quiet. We work better when we do not have to worry about friendly fire. The first Vorax assault wave hit the wall 20 minutes later. Yethrin crouched behind a barricade with his soldiers and watched in stunned silence. As the night came alive with death, he could not see the humans anywhere, but he could hear the results of their work. Vorax soldiers screamed and fell by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The crack of human rifles echoed across the battlefield in a constant rhythm that never slowed or stopped. The enemy kept coming, and they kept dying. Yethrin saw flashes of movement in the darkness as the humans shifted positions with impossible speed. One moment a Marine would fire from the left side of the wall, and the next moment, the same Marine would appear on the right side, still firing. It was like watching shadows fight against flesh and blood, and the shadows were winning. The Vorax sent wave after wave of soldiers against the wall. They threw grenades and fired artillery and even tried to scale the walls with ladders and climbing gear. Nothing worked. Every attack was met with precise and deadly fire from enemies they could not see. By the time the first light of dawn appeared on the horizon, the assault was over. Yethrin stood up slowly and looked out at the battlefield. What he saw made his legs go weak, and he had to grab the wall to keep from falling. The ground in front of Sector 7 was covered with Vorax bodies stacked 3 and 4 deep. The smell of death was overwhelming, and the silence was deafening after hours of constant gunfire. Vasquez appeared beside him again, her armor scorched and scratched, but otherwise undamaged. She was drinking water from a container and checking her rifle as casually as if she had just returned from a morning walk. Good shooting conditions tonight, she commented. Clear sky and no wind. Made things easier. How many? Yethrin managed to ask. How many did you kill? Vasquez shrugged and pulled out a small device. Chen has been keeping count because he is competitive like that. Let me check the numbers. Private Chen jogged over with a grin on his young face. Final count is 2,347 confirmed kills, Sergeant. Martinez got the most with 312, but I was close behind with 298. Yethrin felt the world spinning around him. Over 2,000 enemy soldiers killed by 12 humans in a single night. Casualties, he whispered. What are your casualties? Casualties? Chen looked confused for a moment. Oh, Rodriguez twisted his ankle on some rubble, and Kim has a bruise from a piece of shrapnel that hit his chest plate. Nothing serious, no deaths, no serious injuries. 12 humans had faced 5,000 Vorax warriors and emerged without a single significant wound. Yethrin stumbled back to the command bunker in a daze and submitted his after-action report. With trembling hands, he did not know how to explain what he had witnessed. He did not have words for the impossible things he had seen. When General Koroth read the report, his mandibles went slack, and his eyes widened in shock. The humans had arrived and everything was about to change. The news spread through the coalition forces like wildfire through dry grass. Soldiers whispered about the humans in black armor who had killed over 2,000 Vorax. In a single night, officers demanded explanations and intelligence reports. Even the wounded in the medical tents stopped moaning long enough to listen to the incredible stories coming from Sector 7. General Korath summoned Sergeant Vasquez to his command bunker the morning after the first assault. He needed answers, and he needed them immediately. Vasquez entered the bunker with the same calm confidence she had shown on the landing platform. Her armor still bore the scorch marks from the previous night, but she had cleaned her weapons, and her eyes were bright and alert. If she had not slept at all, she showed no sign of fatigue. "Sergeant," Korath began, pointing at the datapad containing Captain Yethrin's report. "Explain this. 2,347 kills in one night? 12 soldiers against 5,000 enemies with 0 casualties? This is impossible." "With respect, General, it is not impossible," Vasquez replied. "It happened. Your Captain Yethrin witnessed the entire engagement, and his report is accurate." Korath slammed his massive fist on the table. "Then how? How did 12 soldiers accomplish what my entire army could not?" Vasquez considered the question for a moment before answering. "We are Marines, General. This is what we do. We train our entire lives for moments like last night. Every one of my soldiers has spent years learning how to fight and kill in every environment, and against every type of enemy. We do not stop, and we do not quit until the job is done." "But the numbers do not make sense," Korath insisted. "Even the best soldiers in the Coalition cannot achieve such ratios." "Maybe the Coalition has not met soldiers like us before," Vasquez said with a small smile. After she left, Korath called Intelligence Officer Myrith to his office. Myrith was a brilliant analyst who had served the Coalition for over 40 years, and she had never failed to provide accurate intelligence on any species or threat. If anyone could explain the humans, it would be her. "I need everything we have on the human species," Korath ordered. "Their history, their military, their biology, everything. I need to understand what we are dealing with." Myrith bowed and retreated to her research station. She worked through the day and into the night, accessing every database and record the Coalition possessed on the newly contacted species called humans. What she found disturbed her deeply. The next morning, she returned to Korath's office with a datapad full of information and a troubled expression on her face. "General," she began slowly, "I believe I understand why the humans are so effective in combat. The answer lies in their evolutionary history and their cultural development." "Go on," Korath said, leaning forward with interest. "Earth is what we classify as a Category 12 death world," Myrith explained. "The planet has extreme temperature variations, unpredictable weather patterns, dangerous wildlife, and countless diseases. Most intelligent species evolve on Category 5 or 6 worlds at most. The fact that humans developed on a Category 12 world is remarkable in itself. What does this have to do with their combat abilities?" "Everything, General. You see, humans evolved as persistence predators. They did not have claws or fangs or armored skin. Instead, they developed the ability to run for extremely long distances without stopping. They would chase their prey for hours or even days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This gave humans incredible endurance and determination that is hardwired into their biology." Korath's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Interesting, but that does not explain how they kill so efficiently." "That brings me to the second factor," Myrith continued. "Human history. The Coalition species achieved spaceflight through cooperation and peaceful development. Humans achieved spaceflight through competition and war. They have been fighting each other for over 10,000 years, General. They have spent millennia developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to kill other humans. They fight their own kind constantly. They have fought to global wars that killed tens of millions of their own people. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over. They invented chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, and then they invented treaties to ban these weapons because they were too horrible to use." Korath felt a chill run down his spine. "They created weapons so terrible that even they were afraid to use them?" "Yes, General. And here is the most important part." Myrith pulled up a file on her datapad. "I accessed the service record of Sergeant Vasquez. She has been a Marine for 9 years and has served in 14 combat deployments. Her personal kill count before arriving on this planet was 847 confirmed kills. 847? Korath repeated in disbelief. One soldier killed 847 enemies? And she is considered average for a human marine, Myrith added. Some of their special forces soldiers have kill counts in the thousands. This is not unusual for them. This is normal. Korath sat in stunned silence as the implications of this information settled into his mind. He had dismissed the humans as weak and useless because they sent only 12 soldiers. But those 12 soldiers had been forged in the fires of a death world and hardened by thousands of years of constant warfare against each other. Their entire species, Myrith concluded quietly, is a civilization of warriors. They have been perfecting the art of killing since before our ancestors discovered fire. Every human soldier carries the knowledge and instincts of 10,000 years of bloodshed. We thought we were receiving inadequate reinforcements, General. In reality, we received 12 of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Korath looked out the window towards Sector 7 where the humans had established their base. He could see the Marines moving around their camp, cleaning weapons and checking equipment. They looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. But now he knew the truth behind those calm eyes and steady hands. What about the Vorax? He asked. Do they know what they are facing? I do not believe so, Myrith replied. But they will learn. The humans have a saying that I found in their cultural database. They say that the only thing worse than fighting a war against humans is making humans angry. General, I believe the Vorax are about to make the humans very angry. Korath nodded slowly and made a decision. He would no longer treat the humans as token reinforcements. He would give them whatever they needed and whatever they wanted. And he would pray to his gods that the humans remain allies of the coalition forever, because the thought of facing those 12 Marines as enemies was more terrifying than anything the Vorax could ever do. High Commander Zethrax had conquered 32 species during his long and glorious career. He had led the Vorax Dominion to victory after victory across the galaxy. His name was spoken with fear and respect on 100 worlds. His warriors were the most brutal and efficient killing machines ever created, and they had never known defeat. Until Kefra Prime, Zethrax stood in his command ship orbiting the planet and stared at the casualty reports with growing rage and confusion. 3 weeks had passed since the siege began, and his forces had suffered 41,000 deaths. 41,000 Vorax warriors killed, and the coalition still held their fortress. This is impossible. He growled at his officers. We have 900,000 soldiers surrounding that fortress. The coalition has less than 50,000 defenders. Why are we losing so many warriors? None of his officers dared to meet his eyes. They knew the answer, but they were afraid to speak it. Tell me, Zethrax demanded. Tell me what is happening down there, or I will execute every one of you for incompetence. Finally, Intelligence Chief Krathos stepped forward. With a datapad clutched in his trembling claws, High Commander, there is a factor we did not anticipate. The coalition has received reinforcements from a newly contacted species called humans. Humans? Zethrax had never heard the name before. How many human soldiers? 12. High Commander, Zethrax blinked his 6 eyes in confusion. 12,000. No, High Commander. Just 12 individual soldiers. The command bridge fell silent as Zethrax processed this information. 12 soldiers had caused 41,000 casualties. That was a kill ratio of nearly 3,400 to 1. Such numbers were beyond comprehension. You are telling me, Zethrax said slowly, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, that 12 enemy soldiers have killed 41,000 of my warriors? Krathos nodded miserably. Yes, High Commander. The humans operate at night and they strike without warning. They appear from the shadows and kill our soldiers before anyone can react. Then they disappear before reinforcements arrive. Our warriors have started calling them demons and ghosts. And death itself. Zethrax grabbed Krathos by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Find out everything about these humans. I want to know their weaknesses, their fears, their vulnerabilities. No species is invincible, and I will find a way to destroy them. He threw Krathos across the room and turned back to the tactical display. Down on the planet, His mighty army was being torn apart by 12 soldiers. The shame of it burned like acid in his heart. Kratos returned 3 days later with a comprehensive report on the human species. He presented his findings to Zethrax and the other senior commanders in the war room. The humans evolved on a death world. Kratos began. Their planet is covered with dangerous predators, toxic plants, extreme weather, and deadly diseases. They should have died out millions of years ago, but instead they thrived. They killed everything that tried to kill them. And then they started killing each other. They fight among themselves, asked Fleet Admiral Vixiton. Constantly. They have been waging wars against their own kind for over 10,000 years. They invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. And then they built enough of those weapons to destroy it, several times over. They are obsessed with warfare and death in a way that no other species in the galaxy can match. Zethrax listened to the report with growing unease. The Vorax were a warrior species, and they took pride in their brutality and aggression. But even the Vorax had limits. Even the Vorax fought for purpose and gain. These humans seemed to fight simply because fighting was in their nature. What about the soldiers on the planet? Zethrax demanded. What do we know about them specifically? Kratos pulled up the personnel files. They are called Marines. High Commander. Marines are considered elite warriors even among humans. They undergo brutal training that kills many candidates before they graduate. The survivors become soldiers who can fight in any environment and against any enemy. They are trained to never surrender and never retreat. Every warrior says they will never surrender. Vixiton scoffed. Words are meaningless in the heat of battle. With respect, Admiral, the humans mean it. Their history is filled with stories of small groups of Marines fighting to the last soldier. Against impossible odds, they would rather die than surrender. In fact, they seem to prefer dying gloriously to living safely. Zethrax felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was a cold sensation in his chest that spread slowly through his body. It took him a moment to recognize it because he had not experienced it since he was a young warrior. It was fear. How many humans exist in their military? He asked quietly. Kratos checked his data, and his face went pale. Approximately 2 million active soldiers, High Commander. But they also have a reserve force of over 800 million trained warriors who can be called up in times of war. 800 million. The number echoed in Zethrax's mind like a death sentence. The entire Vorax military consisted of 50 million soldiers. If the humans decided to go to war, they could overwhelm the Dominion with sheer numbers alone. And if every human soldier could fight like the 12 demons on Kethra Prime, then no force in the galaxy could stop them. What have we done? Zethrax whispered to himself. The Vorax had conquered 32 species because those species were weak and peaceful. They had evolved through cooperation, and they did not know how to fight. The Dominion had never faced a true warrior species before. They had never faced an enemy that was more brutal and more aggressive than themselves until now. Reports continued to flow in from the surface. Vorax units were refusing to patrol at night. Officers were requesting transfers to other fronts. Entire companies were surrendering to coalition forces rather than face the eastern sectors where the humans operated. The mighty Vorax army was breaking. Not because of superior numbers or better weapons or strategic advantage. It was breaking because of 12 soldiers who moved like shadows and killed like gods of death. 12 humans had done what no army in the galaxy had ever accomplished. They had made the Vorax afraid. Zethrax looked at the tactical display and saw his siege lines crumbling. He saw his army dissolving into chaos and terror, and for the first time in his long career, he did not know how to win. The humans had changed everything, and Zethrax understood now that there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same again. The final battle for Kethra Prime began at dawn on the 42nd day of the siege. General Korath had never imagined he would live to see this moment. For weeks, he had watched the impossible happen again and again. The Vorax army that had seemed so unstoppable was now a broken and terrified mob. Their soldiers refused to fight. Their officers begged for reassignment. Their entire siege had collapsed because of 12 humans in black armor. General, shouted Captain Yethrin from the observation post. "The Vorax are moving. They are retreating." Korath rushed to the window and stared in disbelief. Across the battlefield, the massive Vorax army was falling apart. Soldiers threw down their weapons and ran. Transport ships launched in chaotic disarray, colliding with each other in their desperate rush to escape. Supply depots exploded as panicked crews destroyed equipment rather than leave it behind. "This is not a retreat," Korath whispered. "This is a rout. They are fleeing in complete terror." Ambassador Thylak appeared beside him with tears of joy streaming down her face. "General, I am receiving reports from across the sector. The Vorax are abandoning their positions everywhere. The siege is broken." Korath looked toward the eastern wall where he could see small figures in black armor. The humans were standing on the ramparts, watching the enemy flee with the same calm professionalism they had shown from the very beginning. They did not cheer or celebrate. They simply observed and waited for new orders. "Find Sergeant Vasquez," Korath ordered. "Bring her to me immediately." An hour later, Vasquez stood in the command bunker with her helmet tucked under her arm. Her armor was scorched and dented from weeks of constant combat. A fresh cut on her cheek was still bleeding slightly, but her eyes were as steady and focused as they had been on the day she arrived. "Sergeant," Korath said with a respect he had never shown before, "the Vorax are defeated. The siege is broken. You and your Marines have accomplished what my entire army could not. I owe you an apology and I owe you my gratitude." Vasquez nodded but did not smile. "We were just doing our job, General. Any Marine unit would have done the same." "That is precisely what frightens me," Korath admitted. "Your people are extraordinary warriors, and I am grateful that you are our allies." He paused and studied the human soldier standing before him. She looked so ordinary and so small compared to the massive Velen warriors. Yet she had proven herself to be more deadly than any soldier Korath had ever known. "May I ask you something personal?" Korath said. "Of course, General. What are humans? What made your species this way? I have read the intelligence reports, and I understand your evolutionary history, but I still do not truly comprehend how 12 of you could defeat an army of 900,000. Vasquez considered the question for a long moment before answering. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and thoughtful. "We are survivors, General. That is the simplest answer I can give you. Our world tried to kill us every single day for 200,000 years. The weather wanted us dead. The animals wanted us dead. The diseases wanted us dead. Even the plants on our world are deadly if you eat the wrong ones." She looked out the window at the fleeing Vorax ships. "So we learned to refuse to die. We learned that survival requires strength and cunning and an absolute refusal to give up. We learned that the only way to stay alive is to make sure your enemies do not get the chance to kill you first." "And the wars among yourselves?" Korath asked. "Why did you fight each other?" "Because that is who we are," Vasquez replied. "We compete for everything. Resources, territory, ideology, religion, even sports. We fight constantly because fighting is how we improve. Every war teaches us new lessons and makes us stronger. We hate the death and the destruction, but we cannot stop, because stopping would mean accepting weakness, and weakness on Earth means extinction." Korath shuddered at the brutal honesty in her words. This was a species that had turned survival into an art form and warfare into a science. They were everything the peaceful coalition species were not. "I am glad you are on our side," Korath said sincerely. Vasquez finally allowed herself a small smile. "So are we, General. So are we." 3 days later, Ambassador Thylak received a message that shocked the entire coalition. "General Korath," she called out as she ran into the command bunker. "The Vorax High Command has transmitted a formal surrender request, but they are not surrendering to the coalition." "What do you mean?" Korath demanded. "They want to negotiate directly with Earth. The message says they will agree to any conditions humanity demands. They are surrendering specifically to the humans." Korath turned to Vasquez, who looked as surprised as everyone else. "Did you know about this?" "No, General. This is news to me." Thylak read more of the message. High Commander Zethrax has included a personal note. He says that the Vorax Dominion has never faced an enemy like humanity. He says that 12 human soldiers accomplished what entire fleets and armies could not. He wants peace because he understands that war with humanity would mean the complete destruction of his species. The command bunker fell silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of this moment. An empire that had conquered 32 species was surrendering to a race they had only just met. A mighty civilization was bowing before 12 soldiers in black armor. Vasquez sighed and rubbed her tired eyes. 12 Marines. That is all it took to end a galactic war. My drill instructor would be proud. Private Chen appeared in the doorway with a grin on his young face. Sergeant, does this mean we can finally get some sleep? Maybe, Chen, maybe. In the weeks and months that followed, the story of Kefra Prime spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Every species learned about the humans and their terrifying capabilities. Every government studied the reports and reached the same conclusion. Do not provoke the humans. Do not threaten their allies. Do not make them your enemy. They are few, but each one carries the weight of 10,000 years of death. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they responded by becoming the greatest killers the galaxy has ever seen. And they are only just getting started. General Koroth watched the last Vorax ship disappear into the stars and turned to Ambassador Thylak. Contact Earth and tell them thank you. Tell them the Coalition will never forget what they did here. He looked one last time at the 12 Marines packing their gear. Tomorrow they would return to Earth. Just 12 ordinary soldiers going home after another mission. But they had changed the galaxy forever. The truth had shaken the battlefield, and nothing would ever be the same again.